Welcome to the Sacred Seat podcast. My name is Melanie, and I am joined by the lovely, oh so beautiful Alana. We are going to be talking about what it means to and how to prepare for ceremony. When we're talking about ceremony, of course, we're talking about plant medicine ceremony in particular, and we're going to do our darndest, as we always do, to sink in, chit-chat, discover, explore, and hopefully leave you with some tips, guidance, some insights, and different kind of tools you can work with to be better prepared when you're going into your ceremonies. Alana, hello, hi, and how are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here. This is a topic that I find can be really confusing, and myself included. When I started with plant medicine ceremonies as a participant, I didn't really know what to do, and there's just so much information out there that's different and conflicting. So excited to kind of break it down for everybody.
Yeah, it's a topic that seems very alive. It shifts, changes, and flows, I think, as you experience more ceremonies and your own repertoire or relationship with the plants, I guess, shifts and develops and deepens over time. You start to become more in tune, I would say, maybe, and aware of what the plants are calling you to do to prepare for ceremony, which I think is an interesting aspect and part of what I consider really juicy about ceremony and preparing for ceremony is that it's evolving and there's kind of always something to learn. Of course, we're not per se talking about a particular plant today. I'm sure we will touch on an array, but just hold that in your mind if you were listening or watching this podcast. This isn't a discussion around specifics on how to prepare for ayahuasca, for example, or psilocybin and a mushroom journey. We're going to cover the breadth of most of them, I believe, but these are just general guidelines, I would say, or insights and stories into how preparing for ceremony in general, the structure of it, some of the challenges that come up, because there seems to be a lot and people don't maybe expect them in that preparation process.
Oh my gosh, that is so true. Yeah, I think it's important to mention that basically any prep that you decide to do is an agreement that you have with that plant, and that can look different, like you said, from ceremony to ceremony, from plant to plant. But I think it would be cool today if we talked a little bit about the different areas of prep that you can consider, and you decide as a participant what your agreement's going to be. What are you going to agree to avoid or engage in or do prior to ceremony to help prepare you to meet that plant spirit medicine. And of course, that's also meeting yourself, right? That's also meeting a deeper level of you. And that's why I think I've always approached it with such respect and reverence. That was through my teacher and my teachings, Maestra Elena. She's wonderful. She's great. And I find that a lot of people out there don't talk at all about prep. And I think that's also leaves space for you to have your own relationship. But a lot of people out there are kind of looking more for what can I do? Tell me exactly what I can do to prepare for ceremony. And yeah, kind of talking. I guess it'd be cool for us to talk about why that is and how we can help ourselves and approach that in a way that's that feels like we're being held in that process.
I'm such a believer in preparation. Call me a Girl Scout, but I have such a corner of my whole dang soul is on board with how important preparation is. Of course, we can prepare in our physical realm, our emotional realm, our spiritual realm, but for me, because I am very human and because I have a very established mental realm, I do always start in my mind. I think this is a natural flow. Of course, if you're talking about hearing the call to plant medicine, that is a heart choice. That is a being directional thing. But I think as soon as that call has been felt or you have taken some steps and you have dabbled in that direction, for me, I immediately go into the mental realm of information gathering. So I would like to start talking, I think, about deciding or discovering, I should say, what medicine you are communing with. And you alluded alluded to it, sorry, in what you just said around meeting a plant spirit, communing with a plant. And there is a level of respect and reverence because you are not just ingesting a substance and experiencing a physiological shift or change. When you are going into plant medicine ceremony, you're not just taking a substance. You are meeting a spirit, connecting in deeper with an entire realm that has dynamics and energetics and rules or lack of rules or different boundaries. So for me, the mental preparation of understanding who you're meeting and the lineages, the dietas, the individuals involved for that medicine to reach you. Are you going somewhere? Maybe you're traveling to South America and you're going to Peru, but it's that mental preparation where I start because I love to embrace that energetic dynamic of being that curious child, discovering, learning, asking questions, going down those rabbit holes of what does this medicine look like? Is it a tree? Is it a shrub? Is it a plant? If I've never met with this spirit before, for me, it is only respectful to know their name, to know where they come from, to know their stories and their histories, and who has built relationship with them and kept their lineages and ancestry alive to this point. So it's that mental realm preparation for me that I always start with when I'm going into ceremony. It's what medicine am I meeting and what can I find out about them?
Mm, yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because that's like a rabbit hole that is fun to go down. But I think if you're a first time journeyer, it can be a little scary, especially if you start going down the path of looking at other people's ceremonies and their experiences.
Mm,
And people can get terrified. And it's like, like what other people experience is definitely not going to be your experience. Like that's also just the first thing
yeah,
that I would say with every
very
plant
true.
medicine ceremony is so different. But yeah, I agree with you on the aspect of, looking into connecting with the plant itself, whether that's through, like you said, research, maybe in meditation, maybe looking into the history of it. That's a totally different way of approaching it that maybe isn't going to create preconceived ideas or expectations around what your experience is going to be like. But that's such a human thing too. We do it. We create expectations without even knowing it, and that's also a part of the journey sometimes.
Totally. It makes me think of our expectations and our fears and the dynamics that come up for us in preparation for ceremony can so, for me at least, are signposts, poking in the direction, pointing in the direction of areas that I need to pay attention to. So it's like I have a lot of resistance around this, or a lot of fear is coming up around this one person's individual story. Um, it makes me want to talk, like, yeah. So in ceremony preparation, as soon as you've agreed, in my humble opinion, as soon as you have agreed to go to ceremony and meet a plant spirit, whether this is Wishuma or this is psilocybin and mushrooms or this is ayahuasca or this, whoever you are meeting and communing with, as soon as you have made that heart connection, that soul decision, and you are going to ceremony, you are on that path. Your ceremony has already started. And at that point, throughout this whole preparation journey, the best piece of advice I think you can get from this entire podcast, throughout your entire preparation moment, you are in ceremony already. And everything that comes up is a potential teacher. And when I say everything, like we mean everything. I'm talking the fears, the food, cravings, the aversions, the conflicts with family members. Everything is a signpost. Medicine is moving through you and with you already. She is working. They are working. The energies are flowing and you are in it. So to pay attention, like you were saying, to the dynamics of things that are spiking fear in you or creating a rabbit hole of stories. And it's a really good point that you made about focusing on the medicine, not on the individuals and their experiences. So when I start this kind of, if I've never sat with a specific medicine, for example, I want to know what this plant looks like growing in nature. Because as
Mm.
someone who gardens and homesteads and lives in a forest, you learn so much about herbalism when you just have an opportunity to observe the plant. And a lot of the energetics can be seen and witnessed when you take that time to observe a plant in nature. Is the plant spiky? Does it climb? How much light does it need? These types of questions, just watching and sitting and being with, there's a juice in there when you give yourself the time and space for it. And to keep that curiosity and that childlike wonder aspect can really help, in my experience, keep you out of those fear spirals because you're just discovering a new friend. It's not about this person's story or this person's ego trap. Going into the forest or seeing photos of where a plant grows, I love learning about the way a spirit moves in the 3D, I guess. So, how they choose to show up, what they look like. It's a big dynamic in the cannabis industry, right? There's different strains of plants that look different with different colors and different growth patterns. And this speaks to their lineages. This speaks to the places they have grown, the histories, their development alongside mankind. And I think it can be hugely informative when you take that curiosity, exploration, childlike wonder, power of observation, and keep it lighthearted and not so much on that individual people story, but more the plant. Learn this plant, say hello to this plant.
Mm.
And a little bit feels like time spent. A little bit feels like you got to like pay some due diligence, I guess, some investment on the front end in order to, you don't want to just show up to this relationship and expect to be granted all of these gifts and boons if you've not I don't know, spent some time.
That's so true with all prep. Yeah, whether it's the diet, the physical, the mental, the emotional. Yeah, you do have to put in the work. And I think as people who have not sat, it's really easy to forget. And like, I really like what you said about connecting with the plant. And like, when you're doing that, you're being playful and you're being aware that you're about to do something. You know, you've made this amazing decision. You're nurturing that decision. You're honoring that you made this decision. You're connecting to it regularly. Because I can't tell you how many times I've seen people, they commit to ceremony because there's a part of them that like really needs this or really wants this. There's
Mm-hmm.
a higher part of themselves that's like, this is my medicine. I need to be here. And then as they, like you said, the moment they commit, the ceremony starts, and then all the reasons they have to face, all the parts of them that prevent them from showing up, the parts of them that are resisting this. And so it's like then they just throw up their hands and quit and don't show up. And that's really sad because there were just like you just got presented with all this potent medicine, all these potent teachers that you could have worked through in real time. But you know, we always want our teachers, our lessons to show up in the nicest way possible, but that's not how life works. So plant medicine has been a big teacher for me for that. It's just like, you know, everything is medicine, everything is teacher. Even if I don't like the way it looks, it's a teacher.
Well,
Especially
that's
when I don't
mental
like the way it
realm. Yeah,
looks. Yeah,
exactly. That
exactly.
is mental realm preparation. That's mindset.
Yeah.
What is the mindset that you're going into your preparation for with your ceremony? Like everything is a lesson, everything is ceremony, everything is a teacher, and it is sacred when you make it so. So bringing that intention and that awareness that we're talking about here is a pivotal thing. You need to be paying attention to the rhythms and the cycles and the patterns and the fear and these shadows that show up during prep and especially in ceremony. But if you are avoiding these things, you're not reaping the benefits of all of this juicy medicine of being just fully present in your own dang life. Like
Yeah.
the saying of, I'm gonna butcher this, but it's a beautiful saying. Taking every step like a meditation, right? Like every step I'm kissing the ground with my feet and it's a meditation. Everything becomes ceremony and ritual when we bring in that level of intentionality to it. And this preparation process, you are intentionally preparing yourself to commune with a plant spirit, to go in, to journey, to search. It's sacred work. And I think that mindset of, hey, I've made this commitment, I'm in preparation, now let me pay attention is like very pivotal.
Oh gosh, yeah. And yeah, it's hard when you're faced with your stuff. It's like easy to want to throw up your hands as well and just be like, ah, I'm out. Like this is too intense. You know, I've prepped for quite a few ceremonies in my life now, and now it's so funny because like I just see it's like, grandmother medicine, ayahuasca is my main teacher, but I'll just see her like stirring the pot and just like, lighting up areas of my life, my relationships, creating little like things like little fights even, or little like you're just like, wow, like this is like powerful. And I've grown to, I used to freak out, and I still have a little
Mhm.
freak out, but now there's like this deep trust. It's like, okay, this is coming up for a reason. Let's shift through this together with a family member, whether it's my mom or my partner or my husband or my sister or whatever, right? Like it's, these are all things that we get to work through. And like once you work through some of these things prior to ceremony two, it like opens you up and clears you to show up and go deeper when you actually meet the medicine for the actual ceremony too. It's like you can get more medicine. So the effort, like you said, the effort you put in is like what you're going to get out. So if you're like facing these things in prep, you're already getting that medicine, you're getting that benefit. Then when you actually do show up, you'll get a bigger gem, maybe, let's say. I mean, we don't really know for sure, but that's kind of been my experience, is like the more prep that I've put in, the more intentionality into the prep. And not like from a place of like being so strict and mean that I'm not having any kind of leeway, but just like, okay, I'm doing this because I know this is like going to support my ceremony. It feels right. I'm holding myself with some strong boundaries in a way that feels that is respecting, and like
Mhm.
you said, creating space for this other entity, this spirit medicine, to do some magic and show you what you need to see.
Yeah. It's crazy to see how much actually falls into the mental preparation sphere, because there's so many of these aspects that are getting called into this
Mhm.
one bullet point that I didn't really realize all fall under your mindset, your mental preparation, the attitude that you're approaching this with, because that's a really pivotal piece, is how you choose to show up in relationship, because you are entering into a relationship with a plant spirit. And like you just said, there is huge challenge in that. There's huge challenge, and it can be so scary. Oh
Yeah, no,
man.
it's a lot, and I get why people back out too, right? Like I get it. It's a lot. So I think if there's any like even one takeaway from today's podcast that you could take home, is like, hey, this is a part of the process. And I'm not saying that to scare you away, but to give you permission to be in that state and to trust that state. Um, and trust that prep period, like it's going to be crazy. So just plan for it and prepare to like set things aside, to whether you're doing your journaling or your meditation or breath work, or like you said, like connecting to the plant on other levels of just like looking at it how it is in nature, observing it, whatever that is, create the space in your life to nurture that.
This makes me think of the fact that I am a very active thinker. So my brain, she's strong. The force is strong with my brain, and she will go and go and go and go. And often I will view certain things in my ceremony prep as a way to just keep my mind busy over there while I sit with feelings, or I just to keep my mind entertained, so she doesn't just create rabbit holes and problems or stories to pivot or shift or try and change. I often find myself treating my overactive mind kind of like a 5-year-old who needs an activity to keep its hands busy so that I can like do the work over here. And some of those things would be those research rabbit holes, like you were saying, or journaling, because on a certain level, your mind and your mental realm is unable to prepare you for the journey and the ceremony that you're going to go through. So this is a multi-dimensional experience when you are in ceremony, and also in your preparation for ceremony, and in your life. We're not a single plane, a single dimension, or a single realm being. We exist multifaceted all of the time, all at once. And preparation is a very clear area in my life that I have to work consciously with all realms that I exist on to prepare, because this is an experience that will tickle all aspects of me. So I will keep my mind busy with preparation, a checklist, things that I'm going to do, and my mind will just man that checklist like it's its day job, just like hit the grind. Have I done my journaling? Have I done my yoga? I'm going to do this check. And in a way, it's just appeasing the part of me that needs to find stories and needs to be busy in order to feel like I can handle something. But there is a huge part of preparation that is far beyond that. And that is where we go into the emotional and spiritual preparation. So while I am keeping my mind occupied thinking that it's going to solve all the problems and answer all the stories and cross the T's and dot the I's, and I'm going to be so ready and I'm so prepared, because there's always going to be a level in which you are not. That is the way it works. That's the mystery. I can sit and be a little bit more still in myself, in my physical prep, in my emotional and my spiritual prep. It's a fun, multifaceted, many dimensional, different realm way of moving. And it's there's a lot to it. And having this conversation, I'm getting really excited about it, because it's fun to sit in that potency, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it is a very multifaceted, multidimensional experience, prepping for ceremony. And you have to come at it that way. And it's like been kind of cool, like looking at this and kind of, like you said, breaking it down and seeing what falls under what category. And I find a lot of the categories do kind of overlap too, like emotional and mental. I find they're just so tied together. You know, we have a thought, there's often always like an underlying feeling that is accompanying that thought. And so, being with what's coming up for you, maybe not necessarily, like you said, keeping your mind busy and not jumping on the thought train, but really what's happening in your body is kind of like that emotional piece is really like what sensations are coming up for you when you're feeling into your body, being in your body, right? Like actually connecting to your body, and not just always being in the mind somewhere outside of your body, but like paying attention to how your feet feel and paying attention to how your root chakra feels and your heart, and getting curious about what's living in your body, because that's all going to be relevant and might even be highlighted during your journey or your ceremony that you're going to have. I can't make any promises because I don't, you never know what anybody's ceremony is going to be like, because every single one I've had has been completely
No.
different. And but yeah, it's really cool when you start to be in that prep phase and to utilize it and feel it all. And that process of like feeling also is like a skill you can kind of anchor in during your prep, and you can bring that into your ceremony and really be in your ceremony too. And as you feel things, or as myself, whenever I feel things, there's this sense of it being released as it's being felt. It's like that's what that acknowledge, that being seen is what sets it
Mm.
free from your body and allows you to let go or transform or fill in the blank of whatever needs to happen. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
like you're moving through it, you're
Exactly.
feeling through it. Yeah, that mental realm prep is so huge, but you also mentioned it, and it's kind of like, why even do
Mm-hmm.
preparation for plant medicine? And you touched on it so well when you were saying that it's like this process of sifting and sorting through
Mm-hmm.
the surface level stuff. I think I view it in the way of like talk therapy, like cognitive behavioral therapy. You can talk things out and puzzle through it, and you're walking your mind through a lot of things, right? That allows your perceptions to change and your internal dynamic to shift. And then slowly but surely, your emotions kind of realign. You work through them, you walk through them, then your body releases some of that somatic charge, and you can actually make progress. And this usually takes weeks, months, years, periods of time, right? But there's that period in talk therapy where you're just kind of getting the gossip out of the way. You're getting the stories out of the way. You're getting all of that mental, just call it gunk. And not to discredit or to make it seem small, but when you're doing and signing up for this type of work with the plant medicines or in deep ceremony, even things like breath work or a committed yoga practice, like you can get to this depth beyond plant medicine. But when you are going to do that level of quote unquote work, to get that surface level of gunk out of the way makes that ceremonial experience with the plant medicines way more potent. And it allows you to get to the core of things that you were trying to shift or feel through or move through a lot faster. So that all of this mental preparation, and we're about to talk about physical and emotional and other forms of preparation, I wanted to really anchor in why prep for ceremony, why is it important? And I know that we've talked about it already, right? But for me, the importance of it is that it makes you can think about this on so many different levels too, but it makes your ceremony more potent, in my opinion. It prepares your body for the receiving of the medicine, and I'm talking different chemical reactions in your body. I'm talking your diet. Physically, it prepares you to receive the medicine. Mentally, it helps you think of systems and structures for integrating new insights, for deconstructing and understanding areas of your life that you want to pivot in. Emotionally, you can start to feel through your trepidation and your fear. Spiritually, it allows your soul, your heart, your being an opportunity to show up and call you forward in specific areas, to align you with a dharmic path, to shift and move. All of this work is like preliminary work that can be done before you sit down in ceremony, and then you can get to the heart of it a lot quicker. Because if you sit down, I'll try to think of like a really easy example, but if I sit down and I say, I had an argument with my mom and about the dishes, and it made me feel really horrible. And it's a big part of what's pushed me into ceremony because I've had tension here in my life. If I don't sift through the fact that it's probably not about doing the dishes before I go into ceremony, that's just one more thing that the spirits of the plant and I'm going to have to sift through when I sit in ceremony, because it's not about doing the dishes. We know this, right? We know this. It's not about the dishes. It all comes down to a deep childhood wound of no matter what I do, I feel like I'm not enough. So now when I sit down in ceremony, after having done all of this ceremony prep, I can get to the fact that I have a deep wound of feeling like I'm not enough. It has nothing to do with the hypothetical story about my mom or the dishes I didn't do or what I ate or didn't eat that day and how tired I was and if she was in a bad mood. It has nothing to do with those stories. The root of this problem is the fact that I will always find the pattern that tickles the wound for me that I am not enough. And that to me is the purpose of preparing for ceremony in this level of intentionality. It allows you to just get to
Oh
the
my
fucking
gosh.
thing.
Yes.
Get to the thing that's actually going to pivot your life. Get to it. And then the stories and the patterns and the people, it all falls into fucking place. But get to that
Totally,
thing.
yeah. And I can't tell you how many people I've met, and not that it's not potent medicine, but like that I've met and Aya's like, or the plant medicine, whatever they're doing, is literally just working with their mind. It's like trying to like, and their whole ceremony is exactly what you just talked about. Like, and it can be disappointing when you're expecting something bigger. And so this prep piece is like almost like if you don't do the prep, you're just like, oh, it's just whatever. It's just a ceremony. It's like, yeah, whatever. It's just a ceremony. Expect whatever results. If you go into this and like with complete reverence and like, I'm taking this seriously, I'm putting in a lot of effort, I'm making some shifts in my life with this like kind of like, it's a big deal, then you're going to have a big deal ceremony, you know? Like, and that's almost like even like that self-fulfilling
Oh my
prophecy,
God.
right? And I see a lot of plant medicine practitioners out there.
Oh
They do,
my God.
they try and like make it be like, oh, it's just like it's a whatever thing. It's like, you know, we try to make it fun. And I'm like, I feel like I'm like, but then people are just gonna have whatever ceremonies, you know, like you choose. It's a big deal to me to plant medicine. It's not cheap. It's
So,
scary. It's all of the things, right?
okay. It's so accurate. I'm just thinking to the
Yeah.
first time I sat with ayahuasca and like, I'm a hardcore person.
I remember that
I'm
prep
just
for
a
you.
hardcore person. And I've got, oh my God. I'm like I said, I have an intense mind. I'm like an all or nothing. Like I go way harder than you need to. And I think I overdid prep in a way. Not that I dieted too hard or whatever like that, but I really put myself like this was so serious. I took it so seriously. I eliminated reading books. I stopped listening to music. Like I did it no like everything. No Netflix, no movies, no media, no socials, nothing. Just to be like the most me. I worked my way through like 10 different exercises to get to like intentions, and then I had my intentions ranked of importance, and like if I had time I'd get to these. Like I was prepping for a ceremony for I think it was a month and a half, and to like it is sacred when you make it so. I was so vying for like I want to see God. And I don't mean like capital God or any kind of religious construct of God. I was just like show me magic, and I was prepping to like go to war. I even went into that ceremony with like braids, like war braids. I was 2 steps away from having like war paint on my face because I was like, no, we are doing this. I'm going in. And I got fucking served, dude. like, um, yep, yeah, it worked. You did it. But it, to me, it's just, I can laugh about it now. It was not funny in the moment. Not funny in the moment. Funny now. We, hindsight is 2020. But it really is a great example for me that we are co-creators of this experience. And it is, you are meeting with well, the way we often speak about plant medicine is we're personifying their spirits, right? Because they don't exist in our world the way we would imagine that they do, but they are real, and you're meeting with an entity unto itself. So there's a relationship, and in a relationship, there is more than one person. There is two people. So how are you showing up to relate to this plant? What energy are you bringing? Because you are co-creating your ceremony with the plant medicine. And they know, man. They know. They so know. They're inside of you. If you did not dedicate, if you didn't show up, if you didn't do the work, if you weren't honest with yourself, let alone them, they know. Like, who do you think you're fucking fooling?
It's true.
Oh, but yeah, that piece of co-creating, the energy that you bring, whether you go real hard, I would highly suggest balance in this sense, or not. You know, I got a lot of potent medicine. It was an incredible experience, but I definitely went very hard, and I created a whole construct and a whole story of the way this meeting was going to go. And I did not reel my mind in my first experience with ayahuasca as much as I could have, which would have made the experience probably a lot more gentle. But I definitely got what I asked for. So it's another aspect that I think leads us into that emotional and spiritual preparation is intention setting, and being really clear and cautious and aware of what you're asking for, because you will
Well,
probably
yeah,
get
that's an
it.
aligning of like everything. That's an aligning of your spirit, of your emotions, of your mental realm, of like to really get clear. And for me, like I try when I'm setting an intention to really align to my spirit, to my highest self, um to the bigger picture, to the part of me that understands what I actually need, and kind of like realizing that me, this like
Mm-hmm.
tip of the pencil, this like tiny little being that has very limited view, doesn't really know what I need. Like I have no clue. Like I think I do, but I actually don't know, right? So for my intention to be more aligned spiritually, that takes time to, like you said, you have to kind of like sift through all of the crap and be like, okay, to get clear. And I like what you said too about like your prep is like, and not push it either. Like there's this sense of like, okay, I'm going to set it and forget it. Like you create your outline for what you're going to do for prep and be like, okay, this feels good. I'm just going to follow these boundaries, and within this container, I created a safe space for me to start interacting with the plants. Not like we're going for it. Like, and that's also like totally you. And yeah, I know you got a lot of beautiful medicine from that ceremony. So
Well, and it's
totally.
just that balance thing again, that which I get so tired of people saying like, "Oh, find balance," because it's a lesson for me because I'm not that way. So every time someone's like, "Oh, if you just like find the balance," I'm like, "I'm gonna throw punch you." But it's a big part of it. It's, and not even so much a balance. I like how you framed it. It is alignment. You are wanting to be in alignment. Your mind is a tool. I have worked so hard to hone this tool. And I think a lot of the issues, side topic for another conversation, but a lot of issues in this world is an untrained mind. We have that anxiety, that depression. We have that inability to just put some parameters, some borders to master thyself, you know? And I think that's a big aspect of our evolution right now as a species, because our mind is to be in service to our spirits. It's a tool that we can operate within the 3D with. It is a beautiful tool. And just like with a hammer, you can use your mind to build a beautiful house, or you can use your mind like a hammer and cause harm. So, how you use the tools you have is the important part. And to that, speaking about anchoring and emotional prep and spiritual prep, they're really hard to separate. And I don't know if they're ever truly separated. I don't think any of these dynamics of prep are ever truly separated, which is an important part to acknowledge as well. The mind and us humans doing and being the way that we are, we like to put things into little neat boxes and have separate categories and have like, oh, this is the mind and this is the spirit, and this is emotions, and I know what the heck I'm talking about. And it's like, that is all true on one level. You go up half a level, you go up or pivot or switch your perspective like a tiny bit. It's all one thing. You're all one thing, and we're all one thing. So while we can get really nuanced to try and understand and prepare and get our minds wrapped around it, there is a certain point where your mind is no longer an applicable tool for the journey that you are on. And this is where that emotional and spiritual prep comes in. We're talking energetically aligning. I guess I would put that into the category of spiritual over emotional if I were to put it into a category. But I'm talking paying attention to chakras, meridians in your body, paying attention to like your spiritual flow, your energetics. Where is the resistance? And this is a lot about, for me at least in my experience, reading things within my body. That's how I pick up a lot of where I'm at spiritually. But aligning this spiritual prep, this intention, this life purpose, and this dharmic all kind of falls into that spiritual realm prep for me for ceremony. How can I be of service to the collective? What work do I need to do? What humanness do I need to move through so that I can be in alignment with my spiritual purpose or the light that I'm here to embody? That sort of dynamic. How do you feel about spiritual prep for ceremony? It's a hard one for me to
Yeah, and it's
conceptualize like
interesting because
this.
I think for most people, it's like the first thing that brought you to ceremony, that moment of like, aha, I'm gonna sit with plant medicine.
Mm-hmm.
That I feel like is spirit speaking. And so from that moment on, spirit's kind of
Yeah.
holding you in this divine paradoxical space of, okay, we're gonna shift some things. This is your medicine, this is your path. But I really like what you said about the body. And it's like it's through the body and going into the body and being in the body, and the body's always in the present moment. That's one of the beautiful things about the body. It's not going to lie to you. It's what's here in the body now is what's relevant now. We can try and project into the future or the past or do whatever we want to not to resist being with this or try and get yourself out of this feeling. But really, the only thing that's going to anchor you in and align you and connect you to spirit is that through the body. It's that inward involution into self that is going to align you. And that's a hard process because it's not really taught in the world. Like you said, we all live in our mind with a bunch of minds that
Yeah.
are not trained properly. We've given the mind so much power. We self-identify with the mind. We don't even know that this is like anything below here is who we are. That this is this whole being, this whole body is a part of us, a part of our spirit, connecting us to spirit, right? And so, yeah, I totally agree. This spiritual, it's hard to separate them, but spirit kind of holds the container from the beginning, and it's kind of like the spirit, and then we've got the mental, emotional coming in, and then it's almost like we go into the physical prep, which is usually the most like black and white kind of that we can get. Although within that, so many different choices we can make, the
Mm-hmm.
foods we're eating, the things we're consuming, media, like you talked about that with your prep, the media, the television, the reading, the music, all that. Sex is another one, right? So there's like all sorts of different ways that we can look at this, and yeah, they aren't separate, but we need to kind of separate it a little bit to try and conceptualize it and create that conceptualization.
Yeah, like we need a roadmap
Mm-hmm.
to some degree, right? And that's, I don't mean, and I don't want anyone to feel shamed around that because I am such a mind person. So like I feel like I so relate to I want to understand, I want to know, I want to plan, I want a roadmap. And then comes in that trust in spirit. Because at a certain point, like you just got to put your hands up. You're like, oh, you got to trust in the
Yeah.
fact that your spirit has, I mean, and call it what you will, spirit, God, light, source, energy, cosmos.
Mm-hmm.
I include all of
Just
that in
words,
this
right?
conversation and more. I don't have all the words. Yeah, I don't have all of it. I don't have all the language for that. But whatever you want to call that, like they got you, she got you, it's got you, you know? And I think that's a beautiful way to frame it is that spirit is really what has put you into this container. And within that container, we're playing with our physical prep, our emotional prep, and spirit, like that dimensional shift higher it knows. It's already prepped. It's just waiting, you know? It puts you here so that you can jump through the hoops on that more human plane, which is the mental or the emotional and the physical. That's what spirit has come into to experience a human experience.
Yeah, totally.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Does that make sense? Did I articulate that well? Like, spirit's here and is like,
Yeah.
okay, catch
Yeah.
up now. Come on, we're
We're
going this way.
aligning.
You're
Yeah.
coming with me. It's there. It's ready. Yeah, we're like, this way, please, over here. Come on, pivot with me here.
It's
Work with
time.
me,
It's time.
guys.
Absolutely.
And yeah, which I guess is another beautiful way of saying that your body is a container for your spirit, and then that's how you move through. And that makes perfect sense that we're feeling through our bodies in this present moment to be aligned and listen to the directions and the pivots and the suggestions and the feels from our spirit. And I think the physical prep that we go through for ceremony often is centered around diet, which makes sense because this is something that we can control. I think the dynamic that I see in ceremony prep, definitely within myself, and I've seen it in other people as well, is the fact that we can control what we do and we do not eat, what we do and do not consume. So whether we're talking food or media, like I talked about earlier, we can also, our minds really like to think that we can control a lot of stuff. So we will heavily focus in ceremony prep as humans, because it's our tendency to do so, to
Yeah.
focus on the things that we can control, which is why I mentioned that I'll just keep my mind busy over here so it can think that it's controlling all of these things, when in reality there is no control that we have. We are trying to align ourselves to the trust in the spirit and to commune with the plant medicines and the plant spirits. There is work going on deep in the emotional realm and the spiritual realm throughout this entire ceremony prep that we're not even always aware of when we're just keeping our hands busy, making sure that we eat the salad and we don't have dairy and we're not having sex and we try not to watch violent movies. Like, all of that is prep and it's getting our humanness ready, but there is some really deep work happening on that emotional and spiritual realm. And one of the only ways, there's practices and ceremonies and rituals in ceremony prep that we can do to do this, but one of the only ways for myself I've ever gotten to a place where I can actually allow my spiritual and emotional realms to prepare or to process or to work is by providing
Yes, totally.
space.
I love that. Yeah, you definitely need to create the space for spirit. Otherwise, because otherwise the mind just monopolizes the whole time. And so sometimes we need to really connect, create the space to connect deeper, and whatever that looks like for you, to quiet the mind, to calm the nervous system, to come back into the body. And yeah, like that trust piece, to connect to that trust. I think that, like, I love that you made that point, because that is definitely, in my opinion, the most important part of prepping for ceremony, is just trusting it all. Regardless of, like, let's say you get thrown in a billion different directions and you can barely do any diet prep, and you still just trust and show up, and there's going to be a lesson in there and you'll learn. And if it's a problem, you'll do different next time. You'll learn. That's that integrity
Mm-hmm.
piece in life. A lot of us get so afraid of having to do something wrong or fail at something. And that's, I've done that with prep too. It's just like, you push it too hard, and then you're just kind of missing the point. And the point is the trust, the magic is happening. You can soften into this place. It doesn't need to be like I'm doing this because I'm afraid, I'm out of fear that something bad's going to happen. And don't get me wrong, like the first time I met plant spirit medicine, I was terrified. Like, I like begged my husband to do it with me. Like, I'm like, we're like, okay, we're either of us are scared, we're gonna get up and leave before we drink, like there was a lot of fear there. So like all the prep I did, like you said, I was also very intense with my diet and intense with a lot of things because I was terrified. And so like that prep came, yeah, it came from
Yeah,
a
that
sense of fear. And
mind.
like, and fear,
Yeah,
like, it
when
means that I
fear.
respect the medicine and that I'm respecting the experience, which isn't a bad thing. But it's also like you can respect something and revere it and not fear it, and come at it from like this. I trust it. This is powerful. And trust that whatever you choose to do in your prep is enough. It's enough. And again, like I said, if it's not,
Yeah.
you'll learn. You'll learn for next time. It'll be clear to you.
Respecting and fearing are so similar to me in a certain way, and that sounds silly, but I respect the shit out of the ocean because it is vast and far beyond me, and it
Yeah.
can be terrifying. And that is the same way I view plant medicine. You scare the heck out of me because you're beyond me. Like, we're talking about natural forces that I simply do not have control over. So there is a reverence and a respect and a
Yeah, that's
healthy
true.
dose of fear. This is not going to go away, right? When I look at that ocean, I'm like, wow, you're beautiful. I know I can work with you. I can swim in you. I know you support life. I know this planet is nothing without you. Thank you. I love, respect, and
Yeah.
revere the ocean. It scares the shit out of me
Yeah, and I
at the
think it's
same
like I
time.
think that's important. And yeah, you're right. You can't really separate the two. But if you're constantly just doing from fear instead of doing like just a slight shift is like I respect this medicine and I'm going to
Oh, yeah.
set this and trust it. And it's hard to trust something like you said that's so vast, so unknown, so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and it's like it is extremely vast and unknown, and you don't know what you're gonna find and see, and how the plants are gonna work with you or against you. At times it can seem, even though they're still working with you. It's like you don't know what's gonna come up in your journey, and that is scary. But that like
Mm-hmm.
coming back to trust and trusting that you've done enough, that you've set your prep to the point, and if you didn't, then that's a learning experience, and next time you'll do more or less or whatever you need to do. I'm sure you after your first one probably are like, okay, maybe I can dial it back a little. And I think I did after my first one too, and then I slipped a little deeper and I was like, okay, I could have done a little better. So there's kind of a dance that happens, and like we said we hate the word of like how it's like everyone find the balance, but you naturally will find the balance over time with your ceremonies and how you show up.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I also think that like that's why people in their first ceremonies are like, how do I prep for this? How do I prep for this? It does come from a place of fear. It's like, and again, that's
Yeah.
yeah,
Which is
100%.
so understandable. We're scared of the unknown. Like, I get it. It's daunting. It's a big thing, especially because there's
Mhm.
that vulnerability, right? There's that heartache. There's that emotional aspect to this when you have maybe acknowledged something is not the way you would love it to be. You're hurt, or your heart is sore, which is human. I keep on saying, like, we've got to make room and space for this humanness. This is the human experience.
Yeah.
Being scared is human. Being lost in our mental realm, trying to solve all the hypothetical problems is human. Having emotional wounds that we are moving through and processing and lost in is human. Just like it's human to have trust and hope and this drive and desire to search and discover, that is also human. This longing for more while being content or uncontent where we're at, this is the human experience. Give yourself
Hmm.
grace to be human. You're allowed not to know what's coming. You're allowed to be terrified of the unknown. It is so human. It is so okay. You are not the only one who feels that way. I wish everybody could just know that and remember that all of the time. You're here to feel uncertain. You're here to feel fear. You're here to feel love. You're here to feel hope. You're here to feel,
All of it.
period. We got to make room
Yeah.
for the human.
Oh my gosh.
Like,
Yeah.
that's the point. That's the point. That's it.
Gosh. Yeah, but look at the
Like,
world. Look at the world. We don't want to feel anything,
so
right?
yeah, that's
Like the
the
depths, the lengths that we go to, the
mm,
ways we create to not have to feel, myself included. Like it's fascinating.
yeah, escape, disassociate, distract, anything to, and you know what? I think it just all stems from the fact that sometimes feeling certain things are
Yeah.
hard. Emotions, that emotional realm, which I guess we haven't talked too much about the emotional prep. I think the emotional prep for me always just feels like, in a way, acknowledging a dissonance or acknowledging something in my life that has caused emotions that are requiring to be
Yeah.
processed. And my emotional prep for ceremony is really giving myself space to feel every feeling that comes up, which includes the fear, the self doubt, the uncertainty, humoring to a certain degree some of the mental stories that come up. And then I think that spiritual alignment and getting my emotions in check, and the perspective that being firmly anchored in some sort of spiritual alignment gives me is the capacity to have perspective on my emotions, honor my body, and hold my mental realm in check. It's that analogy for me where spirit, my soul, the true essence of all that Melanie is in the
Hmm.
driver's seat of the car. And you know what? I can be scared and fear can come with me, but it's in the back seat. Uncertainty, yep, you're coming. You're part of me. I see you. You're allowed to be in the vehicle. I know you serve a purpose. I will make room for that emotional dynamic. You're in the car too. I've got my physical container, my body that's holding space for it all. I've done an engine and oil checkup. Tires are good to go. The physical container for this entire experience is rolling. We're good. We've got the anxiety, the depression, all of that mental storytelling. It's all in the car. None of them
Mm.
get to drive. Spirit gets to drive, gets to dictate, gets to align to the service, put me on the right path, literally the right road. And that is, I think, the goal for me in my whole life, but is something that can be taken from the macro and put into the micro when it comes to ceremony prep. I'm here because I know inside of me there is a direction, a light, an alignment that spirit has put for me. And now I get to hold space and play with the humanness of everything that comes up for me while I'm
I love
preparing
that
with the
analogy. That's
ceremony.
cool. And I also love that spirit to me can be equated to love. And so you've got this car and spirit's driving the car with love, with all of these like
Mm-hmm.
maybe more wounded, tender emotions and feelings that are coming through, right? So I think that's also a very potent analogy for ceremony too, and life,
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
you said. So that's gorgeous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that just makes me think of, oh, it's so classic, but you have, like I just said, the macro to the micro, and you can take the micro, the small example of ceremony, and apply it to the macro. You take these skills of awareness and how you choose to move and show up in a ceremony with other people, in communion, in love, and these tools you're cultivating in these moments, and then you can take that out into life. When you go into ceremony with intention and awareness, you are not just utilizing this knowledge and these dynamics in this ceremony. The goal with every ceremony for me is to take that information, these understandings, these pivots, these teachings, these skills, these practices, take them, learn from them, embody them, integrate them, and then take them back out into the world with me to live and move differently in my human experience. It's that from the micro now we're going back out into the macro, and the transition from small example and then moving life differently, the micro and the macro, that transition gets smoother over time. And it's like the preparing for ceremony is kind of zooming in to the micro. And then in ceremony, we're in the micro, and then the integration and going back home and coming back to the village, as we often talk about it, that's moving back out of the micro
Mm.
into the macro and integrating back into society. And it's a beautiful play and it's a beautiful dance that I think is
Oh,
really
I love that.
potent.
With medicine, it's all fractals. It's all micro to macro. It's all the same pattern, um, repeating itself over and over again. And you're going for a journey, but life's the journey. And it is. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you're in an
Exactly.
intentional space where you're purposely trying to work on something. And I know a lot of plant teachers will say that we can do lifetimes and lifetimes of work within a plant medicine space because it's so focused. It's so, it's compact. It's like you're doing a lot in a short
Mm-hmm.
period of time to really get these patterns that maybe would naturally shift on their own over time. And I guess in that way, like almost like plant medicine
Mm-hmm.
is born out of our own impatience and dissatisfaction with the timeline of the way we're moving through our world and our life. But maybe it's also meant to be.
Oh my gosh. So Alana just brought up gene keys. She used very specific words. Impatience and dissatisfaction are two shadows in the gene keys that Alana and I are working with right now. But I so hear what you're saying though, because impatience goes to patience and then goes to timelessness, which is the sphere that I'm contemplating right now. Gene key number 5, for those of you who might want to look that one up. It's so true because the micro to the macro, we come out of time. Time is one of the aspects that holds us into this 3D earthly human existence plane that we are on. When we take a few steps, 4D, 5D, which is we're going into the astral realms, we're going into the place where plant medicines live, where they're no longer held in structured bodies, but we are free floating into the planes of void and creation. We are outside of time, which is why timelessness is a dynamic in ceremony. We can do 6 years of work that would take us arduous work in cognitive behavioral therapy, like I mentioned earlier. That takes time. When you take time out of the equation, then everything is happening so much in a compounding infinite now. I mean, literally the potentials are unimaginably vast, which again is
Oh,
a whole
totally.
conversation for another podcast. But that time dynamic warps like mad in ceremony like that, and it's such a cool fractal. Like you said, it's an incredible fractal to see the layers within the infinite now when you just remove yourself a
Absolutely.
little bit. This leads me to wanting to mention briefly, because I know a lot of people are going to want actual takeaways. Give me some practices. Give me some like cognitive, tangible things you can do to prepare for ceremony. My first one is I journal about everything. Something comes up, I feel sad about it, I write it down. Something comes up, because if you don't get the pattern, if you don't see what's going on now, after ceremony, you might, in ceremony, you might just write it down. Is my first kind of practice or takeaway while you're going through this whole ceremony prep. It's wonderful to look back on in future prep for different ceremonies, or when you're back in your village and integrating the ceremony you were
Yeah,
preparing for.
exactly. I also find for me, I do the journaling as well. That's a big part of my practice. Um, Being in nature. It's also a really big one for me. Like going out and being outside. And for me, a lot of my prep, I
Mm.
hadn't been able to disconnect fully from media, disconnect fully from work and things like that. So I found that I had to create that space, like we said, in order to like quiet that noise and then be able to really like get clear on what is my vibration. And I find nature, like going back to
Mm-hmm.
nature, we are of nature, even though I feel like I often forget that, as we all do, is like it's a place that just like calms your nervous system, you know, like the plants around you kind of help clear your energy field, and you kind of ground, and you just kind of get to breathe a little and feel more yourself. And then yeah, you're creating that space for that alignment, for spirit, for those emotions to arise and be held, and maybe not as resisted as they would be in the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that space, because we already mentioned the gene keys, but Richard Rudd talks about
Yeah.
that in regards to just contemplation, right? That passive is more of a passive act than concentration, right? You're just allowing yourself to stew in the topic or the word or the energetic that you're contemplating. And nature's an incredible place to do that. It also, for me, puts me right into
Hmm.
that plant realm, especially when you're communing with plant medicine. I do have an incredible privilege of living in a forest, and it's just so alive in that regard for me. It gets you really outside of your mind, outside of your body. It gets you really back to that natural rhythm. So that's such a good recommendation. Just spend some time in nature, give yourself that space in regards to giving yourself space. However, you do this, I know a lot of people turn
Hmm.
to things like meditation. Meditation can calm the mind long enough for you to sink into that area of space, as well as yoga. I would say any kind of intense physical embodiment helps, because when you move your body, I think you are literally moving your emotions. Emotions, my mom says this all the time, is energy in motion. So when you're moving your body, you're processing and moving through those emotions. So I'm talking things like dance, like we said, yoga, hiking in nature. Get it out, move it. You got anxiety, you got tension, you got fear. Move it, be in it, go through it, journey with it. Not with the intention of getting rid of it, but with the intention of
Hmm.
living through it, living with it. And I think that is a practice that you can do in nature, or, you know, in many capacities. So giving yourself that space and that kind of opportunity to experience, be in it, and
Absolutely.
observe.
Yeah, no, I love that. Movement is so potent. And I think it's also something that a large chunk of the population is like afraid of because it's been so like structured, or this is how it has to be. And I also like, for me, that I was kind of like that, but I did find
Mm.
it as something that's been a big part of my practice, especially for prep, but also daily now, I guess, is like doing intuitive movement is like, you know, like moving your body in a way that feels
Hmm.
good, just being curious, almost like that contemplative way. It's just like, oh, like, what does it feel like when I roll my ankle this way? What does it feel like? Oh, does that feel good? Like moving into what feels good and trusting your body and just connecting to what it feels like to be in your body. And so it's like, yeah, sometimes we can think like, I'm going to go for a run or go for a hike. It's
Yeah.
just this masculine activity. It's like movement can be very feminine, like you said, dance or intuitive movement or yin yoga or even yoga, they can be really great ways to, or going out in nature and walking meditatively, like you said, like with each step, with just like kissing the ground, right? Like these can be, movement can be different
Hmm.
than what we have learned in the past.
So true. Yeah, there's so many parameters and borders and expectations we have on movement. And I think when I get into that place, I
Mm-hmm.
turn to play and I turn to the inner child that I have. Kids frolic in fields all the time. Does that count as a scheduled, structured workout? No. But does that kid need to go to the gym to burn off the excess energy? No. That kid just exists. He embodies himself. He plays, she plays, they play. They are frolicking and
Mm-hmm.
enjoying being in their body. And I think that's what I mean by embodiment. Find a way to be in your body
Yeah.
and have fun. Play. Play. I don't care what you're doing. Throw a stick, dude. Just play. Stop. Yeah, so much in the mind, just go
Yeah,
fuck
it's
around and
funny because
find out.
you could almost like
In
disconnect
your
from your body
body.
by just like moving your body from the mind. It's like that has the opposite effect sometimes, right? So yeah,
Yes.
that's
Yeah,
such a good
totally.
clarification.
Everything. You can just trap yourself in some
Yeah.
little wheel. Be present in your body. Touch your gay, like literally touch your body. What do your hands feel like? Just give yourself a little
Right?
shoulder rub, man. Go a little
I
hug.
love it.
Just hang out in there. All right. Well, of course, we can always continue on talking into things like set and setting, what it means to be in right relationship with the plant spirits, and then we could even go into things like support and integration and community. But we are already over an hour, and I think we've talked about, covered most of the dynamics or things to consider while you're preparing for ceremony. How are you
Yeah,
feeling, Alana?
as far as the physical prep goes, that's going to be very specific to every single whoever you're sitting with, whatever plant you're sitting with. That's like kind
Right.
of the only other thing I feel is maybe important to mention. Um, you know, Eat clean. Clean up your diet. Maybe you don't eat processed things when you're prepping for ceremony a couple weeks before, a month before. You decide how long you want
Yeah.
to engage and put that intention and effort in. And then obviously your maestro of ceremony, your curandero, your ceremonialist, they might also have their own guidelines. And I recommend following them because you chose that person and you're trusting them. And so do what they say. But always do it curiously
Yeah.
and through your own lens and take what feels good to you and remember, like we said earlier, this is a relationship with you and the plants and not it's not a relationship to you and the shaman. It's really about you and the plants and your relationship to them, and that's going to form and develop over time, naturally on its own.
For sure. How you show up in communion with that plant. I think that is often a aspect when I'm doing that research portion is what do I need
Yeah.
to do to honor this plant? What diet prep is this lineage accustomed to? And then making sure that the information I find is in alignment with my heart, my truth, my light, and my relationship to the plant. And taking other people's
Yeah.
experience under advisement, but knowing that this is a heart connection between me and a plant spirit is such a pivotal part of all of this. Doing what is right for us, or what's in alignment for us, or what speaks true to us, um, is a really important key here because that's your intuition, that's your guidance system, that's how you are led by spirit to move in this world. So on tuning with, including your maestro, your ceremonialist, your shaman, your gurus, your little wizards and fairies that you're following and frolicking with, and your
Yeah.
community. I think is a big part of that too, including those people in your life that are special and close to you while you're preparing. Let them know that you might have some things coming up, big emotions, that you're making pivots,
Yeah.
communicating what you need to
Yeah,
with
making
those
sure that you're
around
maybe not
you,
sharing with everybody
especially for
too.
physical
Like,
prep. If you,
that's it's important that you share.
yeah,
Exactly.
sacred, keep it
Exactly.
sacred.
Not everybody's meant to share your story, and you also
with
especially
those
new
in the
ceremony
vault.
people, is like, you can receive energetic judgment from people and you'll feel it. And that can really like throw you off your center if you're just trying to find that in your prep. So sharing with people that are trusted, but also knowing that, don't let somebody else sway you from what you know is true for you. Because some people, I don't know, I used to be that way, somebody had a judgment. I was like, oh, maybe
Mm-hmm.
something's wrong. Yeah, protect your
Protect your
energy. That's a good way
energy.
of summing it
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. Protect your energy, protect your ceremony, and honor yourself, right? Protecting your energy is a way to honor yourself, honor your truth, honor your experience and what you're going into. And it's protect your energy. Be aware of who you're talking to.
Yeah,
That's such an important point.
it is
Man, this is a
huge. I
good
know.
topic. I guess like there's so many good things
Oh my gosh,
to
yeah. I mean, we
remember.
could get into like, medications before ceremony. There's so many like different layers you can, but again, I always recommend
Hmm.
talking to whoever you're working with and being clear on that. Most people won't allow people to be on medications for ceremonies. That seems to be the most common practice out there for safety
Hmm.
reasons. And the less synthetics in ceremony, the better, right? We're bringing
Yes.
whatever we've consumed, thought, watched, that
Yeah.
vibration comes into the ceremony, and it's a group for most of the time, right? So there's not just you to be considerate about in the group. So the things you do
Hmm.
or don't engage
Hmm.
in prior to ceremony will affect everybody in your ceremony in that beautiful container that gets created in the astral
Hmm.
realm.
Yes, totally. That's the how to be in a right relationship piece is what you are
Yeah,
bringing to the table matters. So be responsible and aware of your energetics, your emotions, your spiritual hygiene, your physical body hygiene, your mental expectations, your mindset. You are responsible for the energy that you bring into a container. So take ownership, be empowered to show up to the best of your ability. I think what I'm feeling called to do is dive into maybe some podcasts down the road where we'll talk about more
yeah,
specifics in preparing for ceremony in regards to different medicines that we work with. I know Alchemia is going to be having a mini course. For those of you who don't know, Alana and I together are Alchemia. We do run a retreat business, and we will be releasing a mini course on this conversation on how to prepare for communing with plant medicine. Depending on when we're releasing it and what ceremonies or rituals we have coming up, we might gear it towards specific medicines, as in ayahuasca or psilocybin in specific situations. But keep an eye out for that. Of course, remember to subscribe to our podcast here on YouTube. We would love for you to follow along. Let us know in the comments below if you have specific things you do to prepare for ceremonies, or if there's anything that we've talked about today that really rings true. If you yourself or your friends or anyone you know are preparing for ceremony, share this with them. Let them join in on the conversation as well. It's always so wonderful to get feedback from everybody. Alana, my oh so incredible dear friend, I love hearing from you and your insights, and I love sharing this journey with you. So I'm so blessed and happy to have you here. We
yes, we
have a
do.
blog, correct? That's going to
Yes,
cover
we do.
all
It
of
goes
this
a
as
little
well.
deeper into some of the other stuff too that
Lovely.
we maybe glazed over quickly, which is awesome. So take a peek at that.
Yes. Oh my gosh. There is so much to cover. And I do think if you're up to it, we're going to come back and do another couple episodes about specific plant medicine preparation so that we can maybe accompany you in your ceremony prep down the road for specific
Absolutely. And thank you so
ceremonies.
much, Melanie. I love chatting with you. I love your unique perspective and the way your beautiful mind works. Yeah, it's been beautiful.
Thank you for listening today, whether you joined us on YouTube or on whatever streaming platform. We love you. We hope that your ceremony prep, if you are in ceremony prep, goes smoothly. May the force be with you, Alana, my
Bye
dear.
bye.
Bye bye for now.